Welcome to Breaking Barriers. You know your path. We know the obstacles, and we can teach you how to tear them down. And now your host, CEO and founder of Adapting Social, John Vigero.
Welcome back to Breaking Barriers. I'm super stoked. Just so you know, Morgan, Kristen's been on already. But if you're about to go on a rant of some sorts, that's your camera right there. You stare at that camera.
That one?
That's the barrel right there. So if you have something to say, bam. That's
Like something long, you mean?
Or if you're gonna go on a rant
like
or like
passion,
like boom, that's where you're gonna look. Okay.
Okay.
I'm super excited to have you here. Same with you, Kristen. Good to have you back.
Yes.
So we have some cool stuff popping. We'll get to later in the podcast. But you know, the main thing we want to talk about is driven women. Mm-hmm. It's something obviously you guys are really passionate about. For people listening in, like, what the hell is that? Mm-hmm. Can you please share with us?
Sure. Good. This actually was a passion project of ours. We both come from very, diverse backgrounds of different things. Let me just quickly share the backstory, because Morgan and I actually met through brothers. We ended up dating these two brothers, and I can remember our first conversation. It's my phone ringing, sorry. I might be a client. So our first conversation, we connected over travel.
Okay.
And then
to where though? Where were you guys trying to go?
We were talking about Thailand.
Yeah.
Because
Okay,
at the
that's a pretty cool
time,
place.
I was taking a trip.
Right.
And Morgan loves to travel.
Right.
And she is heavy in philanthropy and is a badass boxer, 3-time world champ.
Whoa.
Right? Golden Glove
Not world
champ.
champ, not
Golden
world
Glove champ.
Golden Glove.
Yes.
But like this tiny little badass person, right, that I meet, which was so amazing.
Yeah.
And although the relationships didn't pan out,
Right.
we know that they had
You were meant to be.
They had very, very good taste in women back in
100%.
2015. So anyway, I was just getting into the industry. I was just getting into real estate.
Yeah.
And she was traveling and doing amazing things. And we were sitting having sushi one night, and we were talking about my issues that I was having at the time. I was getting snubbed by every networking group. I won't mention them, but everybody
But you
told
know
me.
who you are.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. Don't come crawling back now. So basically, everybody's like, get into the market, network.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I'm doing it, and I'm going out. And they're like, oh, well, you're a realtor. Sorry, we already have one. Can't be in it. Oh, wait, you want to do like cool stuff on YouTube and video? Yeah, no, that's too progressive for us. We're not doing it. There was like so many things that were happening, and I was like, oh my God. We empower each other, and we were like, we need a place that we can empower women to be badass professionals, break barriers and stereotypes, and all of these, while also giving back to our communities. And so Driven Women was born, and that was January of 2019.
2020.
Wow.
2020.
Yeah, 2020. Yeah.
Wait, so then what happens?
Bang.
Yeah.
COVID hit.
COVID. But let me tell you,
Perfect timing.
To her point, she was this like business savage out there getting clients, doing her real estate thing. She had just gotten into real estate probably
a few months before.
Yeah, a few months before.
Right into it.
And for me, like, I am very, driven by my job, and I'm very passionate, and I do a lot of different things, but I don't really benefit from a networking group because I'm not going to go out and get clients. I was a prosecutor. I was doing insurance defense work. Now I work in-house counsel for a technology company. So like for me to go out there and like hand out business cards and network, I wasn't gonna get anything from that. So I was like, how do we combine a space for people like you and then people like me? Because I don't want to make this about entrepreneurship where we're cutting out a whole group of women that perhaps have other things to offer, other things to gain, and they just can't actually make it work in that type of networking group.
Yeah.
So we kind of like merge the
Which I
business
love that.
aspects.
It's such a cool, and I haven't really heard anything like that, to be honest.
Well, there
cool
are
to be
groups.
a hybrid of both.
Yeah, but there are groups out there that focus mainly on business, right?
Well, that's what I mean.
So if
It's
you're an
all in one.
entrepreneur, you're going to join this specific group that just focuses on business.
Right.
But we are such emotional people.
Right.
And we want to give back and do amazing things.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where we had this beautiful blend of connection, support, and service.
Right.
Right.
And so those are our three pillars that we
Love it.
live and breathe by. Mm-hmm. And so let's fast forward. I'll let Morgan tell you the story about, post-COVID, we were hosting our first event.
Right, so we launched everything on social and we were so excited. This was in
Right.
2020, of course, COVID hits. Like, it affected us same way it affected everyone else. I'm not trying to make it sound like it was any harder for us. But we had to kind of keep this momentum going until we could actually have events.
Right.
So once we finally decided, okay, it's time to launch, like things are loosening up a little bit, let's have our first event. We planned it out over at La Mondina, and shout out
Great
to La
spot.
Mondina and
Great
Carmine. I
spot.
can go on the whole
Amazing.
podcast
Yeah.
talking
Love
about them.
Carmine.
Love you, Carmine.
Love you,
Yeah.
Carmine. For now, we'll leave it at that. But Kristen and I went to go see the space, and we had this vision in our mind, and we're kind of like looking at the venue, and we're like, I don't know, what do you think? Like 30 tickets, 35, 40, 45. He's like, you know what? We'll just open it up. Like, this is a really cool thing. This is important to me. Like, it's kind of like the origination of La Mondina is
Yep.
kind of around women working in the field. So let's just give you the whole thing, right?
The whole restaurant.
The whole restaurant. So
The whole restaurant.
Like,
We're
700
like,
tickets.
so think about the pressure. We're like,
pressure.
Right.
oh my God, how many people are going
From
to
30
show
tickets
up?
to MSG.
Yeah, basically, and we made the Eventbrite. We kind of like put it out there, got a little help with people, sharing it on
Putting it
social.
out,
Exactly,
right.
and we hit the button to make it go live,
Mm-hmm.
and we sold 125 tickets in 48 hours.
Wow, that's
And
awesome.
we basically were living life at like 5 what the fucks per minute, because we would be texting each other like 20 more tickets. What is going on? Like, we couldn't believe it. And
That's
like
amazing.
we sold this thing out, and I remember vividly, like, I called her and I was like, who the fuck do we think we are?
Yeah.
Like, how did we just do this? And like,
Yeah.
we're just two people that like want to do something different
Right.
and make a difference.
For
Right.
sure.
And people
Well,
bought in.
It
and-
proved to us that there was a hole in the market for what this was. And so, fast forward, we're on our 3rd year now.
Right.
And, the back half of last year, listen, we're business professionals as well. And we have a lot going on, and we travel too. And so we were gearing up. We took the last 2 months of last year to gear up for this year, because we had all of these learns and we wanted to grow. And listen, we want this to be amazing. And everybody to gain value
Right.
from this group, whether it's a connection you're meeting to do business with, or if it's another woman that you just connect with emotionally, that you become friends with, or if you want to give back to these communities with us. We've
Right.
worked with over 12 charities within the area, and we've given
amazing.
thousands of dollars based
Right.
off of our ticket sales and things like that. So anyway, we were gearing up, and so we just launched our tickets for next event, which is next week, right here in Ocean County, and we sold out.
yeah.
Our first event of the year, and we're
Boom.
so excited because we were like, oh my gosh, we've been spending so much time working on the business model.
Nobody sees
right?
the planning. They just
Yeah.
see like the output.
That's
you
how it
know?
always is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it always is.
So anyway, we're so fucking proud of the connections that people are making, the
Right.
charities we're working with, and obviously we gain so much out of it because it's so rewarding to be able to be the catalyst for change and
Right.
for something new,
For sure.
and it's so creative for us too, and I think that's where we gain a lot out of it too.
I
Yeah.
love that. And you know what? First off, I love what you said, because a lot of times, so like somebody we just had on the podcast again was Nino's Coal-Fired Pizza.
Yeah.
Anthony.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we were talking about is like a lot of times like you don't realize on social media and just like when you see people out, like everybody's trying to put on a face, right? So when you actually when you look at a business and what it takes to get to that point, to make that event, to make people show up, to get friggin' all these things in place, it is not easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so cool though that you guys are doing this. And what I love, what you told me the first time, was that it's not just for women in business. You could be a mother at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I vibe hard as hell with that, because my mom was one of I was one of 5, the oldest of 5. And she wound up being a really badass career woman, and then decided to be a full-time mom.
Mm-hmm.
And and so somebody like my mom could attend this, right? My mom is
Yeah.
like
Oh,
a
yeah.
hero, right, to me.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing though is that somebody like that, and there's so much value in everybody you meet. So the fact that you're opening up the gates for listen, you could be your own mom, you could be just somebody who's just building their career as a woman.
Yeah.
Anybody could come, which is so cool. Now, what do you see as the world is changing so much, right? We talked about a lot of things with women having issues getting in corporate America, or those things that pop up. And obviously when we talk about, you and I had a conversation on our podcast where you were when I'm going into some of these deals, people, don't take me as serious in the beginning. And now, obviously that's not the case whatsoever. But what would the both of you, in your own respective, obviously, industries, right? What would you say to somebody who's listening, a female right now who's listening, that is like trying to break through in her career and she feels like that same glass ceiling because, she's a woman, right? I know that's a big topic. So like, what would you say to that person that's listening in that's like, I'm in an all male industry and it's tough for me. What advice would you both give them? We'll start with you.
So, interesting point, because I have experience, and again, you could have a whole podcast about women being in male-dominated fields, both in like athletics and being an attorney, and it's not considered a female-dominated industry. But I would say be relentless. Like that's basically my motto for everything that I do.
Be relentless.
I don't suggest half-assing anything. I mean, you do it all, or you don't do it all the way, or don't do it at all.
Yeah.
So like I would just say, be gritty, keep fighting. Like it's kind of just how you have to do it. And honestly, I think there's this mindset you have to prove something to everyone to get where you think you deserve to be, but you really only need to like prove it to yourself, and just keep acting as if you would in any other setting where you would want to get to where you want to be.
For sure.
I mean, again, we could talk for days about some of the things people have said and the judgments that have been made, and it's just amazing sometimes to think that it's 2023 and we're still having these conversations.
Yeah,
but
it's wild. And I think for mine, like I grew up with my mother and my grandmother. My grandmother like moved in with us when we got a little bit older, and these two are like the most amazing people on the planet and the most powerful people on the planet to me. And so when I hear things like that, it blows my mind, because it's like, I know for a fucking fact, and now we had a conversation too, which I keep referencing, but now having a child for the first time, right? And I think about single mothers out there that have to go through, literally the other day, my son, he's really good during the day, but sometimes he gets gassy, he gets a little colicky. And it's like sometimes I'm up late at night and I'm thinking about, holy shit, like when there's single mothers that are out there, going through this by themselves, that's fucking crazy. On top of having a job, on top of doing this. So that's what my grandma had to do. But what about you? What's your take on it?
Mine's literally exactly the same. I was going to say all gas, no brakes.
Oh yeah.
Are you a Jets fan? That's their saying.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
Jets fan?
Listen,
on the record,
I might peep a jet.
Okay.
Like an athlete, but no. But we're very similar. It's so funny because Morgan and I are like we're so similar in so many aspects, but we're so different in so many others.
Right.
And I think that's what the yin and yang to us in what we do, because we're not like ultra feminists or anything like that. It's not about that.
Right.
And
Yeah,
some people
it's not about
could get the wrong idea. What we're doing is instilling confidence
Right.
in women that need to be around like-minded women.
Right.
So guaranteed, if you're around us, you are going to feel more confident. You're going to believe that you can do something that maybe you questioned you couldn't.
Right.
And I think that's what we celebrate those things too. Like when we connect, whether it's on Instagram or you can drop in on our website, we sponsor companies too. And again, if we're connecting a charity with somebody's company that can support that charity, they can come together and support new launches of businesses. I mean, they're literally, you can run the whole gamut, but we guarantee you that you're going to feel more confident and more excited about what you're doing, who you are as a person, just by being around the women that are in this group.
And
energy is contagious.
It is.
Yeah.
I just literally had a whole conversation about energy, because somebody can either suck it out of you or give you more.
Yeah.
You
For
know,
sure.
and it's really, really important that you're around the right people.
For sure.
Because if you're around the wrong people, they will have you believing the wrong shit.
That's
powerful.
That is facts.
Yeah.
And that goes pretty much for anything. It's like I was having a conversation also with Anthony, and from Nino's, and one of the things that
he's a great person, by the way. We actually
ever.
during COVID,
Love him.
We actually worked together on a video that we shot at his restaurant, and we fed my mom and all the nurses in the ER at that time.
Gosh,
yeah, he was amazing. We made all the pizzas and then we delivered them together. It was
I love
awesome.
that guy.
Yeah,
I love
he's
that
awesome.
guy.
His energy is wild.
Oh my gosh.
He's so good.
He's just such a good person. But one of the things that I think most people don't think about in that regard is that like a lot of times like we're surrounded by our family, we're surrounded by friends typically that we choose, right? Some we have a long time and they stay with us, and maybe they shouldn't stay with us. I don't know, but the whole thing though is a lot of times I think I forget where I heard this over the years, but it's like people kind of put their own like limiting beliefs that they can achieve on you.
100%.
And that's the tough part about soliciting advice from people that don't
Right.
know the subject matter expertise. And growing up, again, I didn't go to college. Like you went law. Like I have a lot of lawyers that I work with. Like a lot of those people are badasses, go through a lot of schooling, deal with a lot of shit. And for me, like I didn't have any formal education. So growing up and like doing business and shit, like I didn't have somebody telling me do this, or like I learned this from a professor. And I think that I would ask the wrong people advice all the time, right? And I'd be like, oh, so I want to start this thing, whatever else. And it's like, you got to go to college, man. What do you mean you want to start a thing and not have a college degree, right? And all those types of people fuel you, and you start to think like, wow, you start to believe in their realities.
It's
right?
true.
And I just want to shout out, like, obviously women, but everybody that is going through that, because if you're getting advice that you don't necessarily like think is right? If it's not quite right? We call it NQR at Adapting Social. if we have an NQR, we look at it and we're like, damn, like, something just doesn't feel right, right? Something's off. And I remember not knowing that acronym, but at the time being like, damn, like, they're not believing in what I'm saying. And thank God I didn't listen, right?
Right.
But there's so many things, whether it's getting into, male-dominated business or it's doing whatever you want to do. I think, again, it's like, ask the right people. Like, don't ask the wrong people. If they haven't been there, don't ask.
I think we find, too, in addition to that, because I see your point completely, and I think Christen will agree with me, what we see a lot of is, and I could say women because it's about driven women, but really just in general, people let themselves stay in these boxes that they're either taught to believe or they think they should be in, and they stay small. And when you try to expand, you find that you don't really meet support. You meet discouragement.
It's lonely.
People are going to tell you, oh, don't do that. You don't need to be doing that, or you should just do that. And people accept that. And they internalize that. And that's how they live their life. And I think that's something, too, that we've been really hard-pressed on doing in the group is, like, telling people, like, don't stay small, don't accommodate people, like, just be as big as you want and like let people fucking deal with it, It's how you have to do it. I mean, and I think too, like to Christen, what Christen was saying before, I mean, we were talking about, what we're trying to accomplish, what we're trying to do too. I mean, of course we're ecstatic when somebody like quits their job to pursue their passion or do this or do that, but I have read probably 2 or 3 messages in our Instagram or talked to people that have literally left like abusive partners because they feel that empowered by other women in our group. And if that isn't
impact
what we're doing, if that's not like who we're doing it for, then like what the fuck are we doing? You know what I mean? Like that is just, it's just such a strong and touching moment and to know that you're helping people like in that way, and you're really not, we're not providing like support services or anything, we're just being us and other people are being themselves, and we're just uniting in such a way that it's creating a ripple effect that people feel empowered to do certain things.
Well, when I met you years ago, you identified me right away as a connector. And that's what I am, and that's what we are. So on that same breath, the one woman actually reached out to me during her time of distress.
Oh my goodness.
Because I'm a board member at Catholic Charities. I am, I have the history and the experience at Providence House, and she needed help. She needed guidance. And so I was there to help guide her and connect her with the right people. Did she need an attorney? Did she need, somebody to talk to for therapy? Did she need a place to go? That's just one example of how we've been involved to help people. And it's just because we've told our stories. People know where we come from, they know what we're about, and then if we don't have the answer, we can connect them with somebody who does. I mean, we're not the end all be all, but it's about like, hey, do you know somebody who does X? And then we connect people. So that's the beauty of it, really. And now we're about to hit 4,000 followers, and again, the events is really where a lot of people get the value. We launched the website, and now we get to bring it to a fucking podcast.
Bam.
How cool is that?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But that's to her point too, like the podcast, like the authenticity, the realness, the rawness, the vulnerability, like because we are telling people our story, we're talking to people about who we truly are, we're meeting people where they are. We're not like, there's no bullshit. Like, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think that that's super important too, you know?
And the cool part is, you know, again, I'm like elated that obviously you guys came to us to be able to produce it. You know, we're a company, you know, that mainly is dominated with females in our industry, right? Like and specifically in our company, like we have more females than we have males. And that's why, again, I'm just like, I guess I could be somebody who's super like sheltered when it comes to this topic. I just don't believe in like doing that to women because I think women could kick my ass in so many different things.
Yeah, but it happens to men too.
But it's true, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So like, but I'm glad that there's people out there that are like you guys that are willing to like, you know, go out there. And I love that you clarified because some people that are watching or that could watch could be like, oh, feminist, like fucking doing this.
Absolutely
and this.
not.
But it's different, right? And I think about something like my mother, which is why I'm so backed behind this. Because if my mom, you know, and I wouldn't even tell my mom to go to one of these things, to be honest. You know, now she's pretty much an empty nester.
January 25th.
But she finally has her first grandkid. But the whole thing though is like somebody like my mom could attend this, and also like, you know, when you're a stay-at-home mom, as an example, like you can go crazy. You're just dealing with kids all day. You don't really have that much of a social life. It's different. And when you get to go out and talk to women that inspire you to be like, oh, I want to go work out or like look better, or feel better, or do this, do that, like, you know, get out of the house and, you know, go start this. Like, I love that you give them those possibilities, which is so big.
Right.
So I love that. So what do you guys see as like the next steps for this, you know, just this community, right? Like where do you see it? Like, let's call it in 5 years from now.
That's a great question. It's a great question. I mean, obviously, I won't speak for you, but I think that, you know, we want to continue to inspire people. That is the name of the game, right? So if you can find a place where you can be inspired to be your best in your profession, be your best version of yourself,
right,
and also, you know, partake in local community aspects or larger national companies we work with too, but that is the main priority, right?
Yeah.
But then we're going to expand this to the podcast, where then we can talk to people globally, nationally,
right.
And
You're
it's not
motivating
just
them while they're home or at the gym or wherever they are.
And I think the important thing for us is, and we've talked a lot about this, is, you know, being authentically us.
Yeah.
Right? We're professionals and we have to wear a hat at certain times, but we want to talk about real life things that are happening.
Right.
Some things might be controversial, but we want to bring in some ultra professional women that can talk about their underdog story.
For sure.
And share that with people. Yeah. And, you know, really, we've had some crazy people locally too that have built these incredible businesses. But, you know, again, it takes grit. It takes all gas. I mean, but if you need the support and you need the cheerleaders, Driven Women is your place,
For sure.
right?
Absolutely.
For sure. I love that. One of the things though that actually inspired me personally to move forward in my first venture, which is adapting, is I had, and I'll never forget this, one of my first few clients back in the day was somebody who was a stay-at-home mom. I had 4 kids. Her husband was the breadwinner. And one day he literally just up and left. And like left the kids, like just dipped, right? And I will never forget her telling me the story, and I get chills thinking about it. But, you know, long story short, she wound up she lost her house, wound up moving into, moving in with her sister and her husband, right? And her sister and her husband had 2 kids, and they were in a small apartment. So now she had 4 kids, her living pretty much in their living room while they were trying to figure their shit out. And she just shared with me, she's like, you know, my sister one day motivated me, she goes, just get up, go to the gym, you know, you're in your head, you're depressed, like you're going through a lot of shit right now, get out of the house, like, because all you're doing is sitting home, like, just get out of the house. So this lady went to the gym, and she wound up, sitting there working out, and she heard some guy talking about, you know, he wants to lose weight and stuff, but like the healthy food doesn't taste good. And she wound up like going over and be like, oh, sorry for eavesdropping, but, you know, I heard you, and like, you know, I can make, you know, food that, you know, that's healthy and tastes good too. And she's like, so if you want, he goes, oh, amazing. You know, so he's like, make me a couple of things and I'll try it.
Hustler.
He wound up being an investor in her company. And long story short, like now, you know, she became successful, moved out of her sister's house and did what she did. But it's like that story now, obviously, from the women and also an entrepreneur standpoint, that just drove the shit out of me, right? Because I was like, wow, like, you know, if you see somebody in that position, 9 out of 10 times that person's going to kind of stay still, and they're not going to grow out of that position. They're going to be like depressed and stuck, right? And that's anybody, right? But especially, when you're somebody who's used to being, having everything paid for, and like you're not out there in the world making any sort of like jobs and stuff. That's a tough world for 30 years later to start. Like that's fucking crazy.
Right.
But she did it, right? And so, like, again, that, number one, will always be a big, like, female empowerment story for me, because I'm like, wow, like, that's fucking crazy. And then secondly, entrepreneurship-wise, I love it for that point, too. But anyway, so to your point, when you're at a place, like, if she was at a place, like, driven women, like, and she got out of the house and she's going through some shit, I think it's, like, these types of people who would be like,
the support system.
Wow, like, okay, this is how, you're thinking. Right, this is how you're thinking. All these women around me are thinking about making big moves and not thinking about like being in this terrible relationship, or like I can't get out of my my sister's house with my kids, like and I think that's the biggest thing people need. They just need somebody who thinks they can and they believe in them, that can support them.
Mm-hmm.
And you're there and you see all these people doing it. It's proof.
Yeah.
It's like, if they can do this, why can't I do this? Like, you had a great story too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you did it. So when you hear these things, it just makes them want to say, I want to do it, right?
Right.
And you know what? And it's so beautiful, because what you said earlier, like about that one, getting people out of toxic relationships, and if that's not impact, what it is, it's like you think about somebody who, if they didn't end up in that group, or those DMs you said you had, if they didn't end up in that group, where would they be, or how much longer would it have taken them to make that change, whether it was career or whatever, right? And so that's a real life impact,
And that's empowerment for us. I mean, we want to do what we want to do because we have a vision, and we didn't always know exactly how we were going to execute it from the beginning. And then as things continue to evolve, you have to adapt. But I think for us, like,
no pun intended.
Yes, no pun intended. There's no greater reward and more motivation for us to just keep on going, and expand the mindset and get rid of that scarcity kind of mentality, and like show people like, yes, the fuck you can, because like, yes, we did. You know what I mean? So
for sure. Tony Robbins always says the secret to living is giving, right? So I love it, because that's essentially what the group is. It's so cool. So podcast obviously is going to be in the works mid February, right? So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah.
What can people expect? So like, if I'm somebody listening right now, I'm like, all right, this podcast is coming. What am I going to? What can I expect to listen to here? Give us a little preview of what people can understand is going to be coming.
You're going to get a lot of profanity from me.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's going to be a healthy mix of professionalism, kind of some profound thinking, lots of profanity, lots of authenticity.
Definitely.
I mean, we're gonna talk about anything and everything, because I think that's what people need to hear, and I think that
unfiltered.
Unfiltered. I mean,
we're getting the other side of sex. I mean, there's no way around it. There's no way around it. We're getting the dark side of the moon here.
Yeah. I think it's important to just kind of show everyone like what we're doing for the community and for the group and everything. That stuff is always going to be the priority.
Right.
I mean, but I don't see how the two of us can get together in front of a camera with an audience, any of this, and not be 1,000% ourselves.
Right.
And that's going to include a lot of things that maybe people won't expect, maybe people won't want to hear. I don't know.
The Catholic board charity's going to be calling.
No, I mean, honestly, I think it's important that, listen, it's not just for women. I think this is going to be a great place for men to go to maybe understand us a little bit too, right? I mean, I love listening to amazing podcasts. I love Jay Shetty. I love Gary Vee.
Awesome,
I love, who else?
I'm a big Rogan fan.
I was just about to say Joe Rogan. So they're all, and I won't be getting high, but neither will I. I know he does a really good job.
Now that he's on the camera.
Yeah. I know he does a really good job, but again, I think some of these things might be controversial, or they might be just super inspirational. But I think that hearing people's stories and really dissecting different topics is going to be, but we also want to have a really good time and drink some Kamodi and and really enjoy this. So I am so excited, and we got to get everybody to tune in.
Yeah.
I share that
for
enthusiasm.
sure.
I'm excited. I think there's going to be a lot of cool stuff. And I know in the beginning we're going to have you two first, and then we're going to develop it out and get
Yeah.
some guests on and talk about things.
Absolutely.
And again, like I love the thought, when you first shared unfiltered with me, I love that because I think in this world, that's the only thing that works.
We didn't
right?
say pictures. We just said podcast.
Just podcast. Podcast. So literally, yeah, I love it. Full disclosure. But the whole thing though is I think it's important because like you said, authenticity is really big in the world we live in now, right? People want to know exactly what the truth is about X, right? So having real people on, having some controversial topics and conversations with people, I think it's going to be really, really powerful. And even in the future, obviously, as Driven Women develops out, it's gonna be cool where things like that. Like obviously, you guys can do things where you can do like live in-person events, but also stream in, where people can stream in and take part in some of the topics and the conversations, so on and so forth. So I'm really excited for people that are watching. For now, you said the website's up. So like, where can people find you guys? Social, website, everything.
Yeah, drivenwomennj.com, and it's also drivenwomennj on Instagram.
Yep.
Boom. I love it. I'm grateful for the both of you. I'm
Yes,
excited
thank you so
to
much.
crush this podcast with you
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
and get this out there. So I have to do this to you because she already got the tough questions.
Oh
You
boy.
ready?
I don't even remember what it
So
was.
I have to hit you.
And
I have
you knew
to-
this was coming and you
No, I
didn't
didn't. No.
She knew.
Oh, stop
No,
it.
I'm kidding. So, all right. So I have to hit you with this only because it's your first time on my podcast.
All right.
So now there's going to be a hard question and like a mild question. Which one do you want first?
Tough or easy?
I want the hard question first.
Boom. Love it. We've been doing this for 2 years asking this question. We've only had one person that has asked
Give
for
me
the
the
easy one
easy.
first.
Oh,
But
really?
it's the characteristics of entrepreneurship. I feel like to ask the hard question, so I love that.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, you want to go hard first. So here we go. So a lot of times.
Do I get to have another shot before I answer the question?
You know what after. So a lot of times people think about legacy, right? With what they want to leave behind, what they want to be remembered by, right? Based on, where you are today, where your feet are planted right now, right here in Point Beach,
Right.
and where you want to eventually end up, right? So it's kind of like looking at it forward, this way. And I like to do this exercise to kind of like reverse engineer that process. So like,
Okay.
instead of thinking about where you are today, thinking backwards of like the end, right? And knowing who you are right now, right? And who you want to be, right? And making that decision of what, if you were to do it today and you were to make your gravestone today, what would that say on it?
My gravestone?
You don't remember this?
I do. I do now.
Shake the shot just kicked in, sorry.
I'll just be over here with the bottle.
Okay. I'm a very logical thinker, so I'm trying to think this through. But
Give it your best shot, just visceral.
I mean, honestly, I would say be relentless. That was my word of the year last year.
So
And
maybe
I
it was relentless.
what?
Like your tombstone, right? So if you're writing it, right? So
It would say
was
she
relentless.
was relentless.
Oh yeah, it was
yeah.
relentless.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, I
think
like
so,
it. So
yeah.
that's your ethos. Boom.
Yeah.
Just relentless. Love it. Okay. So now the easier one, right,
Okay.
is has there been anything over the years that it could be a quote, an adage, it could be a Morgan original, right? Where it comes to just something that like makes you think about perseverance through tough times, right? So when you're thinking about challenge, getting your law degree, going through all that stuff, like whatever to do to get into the field you're in right now, or even just any family challenges, whatever in life. Is there anything you've heard or you've seen or you created or you heard from family or whoever that you think about when it comes to like a nice quote or adage of perseverance?
Perseverance. Honestly, I would say, and I don't know if this relates directly to that, but I think all heart, no quit is like something that I've lived by my entire adult life. And I think that's key for anybody who needs to fight through something and wants to succeed. And honestly, just continues to show up because sometimes that's the hardest part. So
Yeah, I love that.
That would be good for me.
And so I like to ask that question because when I first started my business back in the day, like I wanted something like that could push me and move me. Like I was like a teenager, so I was trying to figure out something that could like motivate me. And that was the quote on the wall over there. But it's live a few years of your life like most people won't, so you can live the rest of your life like most people can, right? Struggle before you're going to emerge. So,
Right.
Again, I love what you're saying, and I think at the end of the day, a lot of people should be able to resonate with that because it's not easy lead with your heart and to find yourself in tough positions and just let it go. You know.
Right.
So first and foremost, thank you for doing my little exercises.
Oh, thank you.
Kristen's getting a nice punch in the car.
Caught me off guard with that.
But cool. So thank you guys so much. I'm excited. We have some big stuff coming. And guys, go follow Driven Women NJ, NJ.com too. And big moves are happening here. So again, if you know, again, it could be your girlfriend, your fiance, your wife. I don't care who it is, right? If you think somebody's good and wants to, they could be a killer themselves, right? This is a group of people who are just badasses. So if they're a badass, or if there's somebody who you think could benefit from being surrounded by women who have great mindsets, then this is the group, right? So send them to Driven NJ. That's the way to go, right? So thank you, Driven Women NJ. Sorry. So thank you guys so much again.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate
That's
it.
wonderful.
And big stuff coming. Stay tuned.
Driven Women Unfiltered.
Bang.